Welcome to Living Truth. I'm Angela James. Together with John Usher, we invite you to dialogues designed to awaken you to truth, enlighten you to who you are, and to invite you to live a reality that you want.
Good morning, everyone. It's Angela James
And John Usher, the brother from another mother.
and we just rehearsed our greeting this morning. So I hope we're starting everybody off with a bit of a laugh today. Good morning. And it's Angela and John from Living Truth. Let's try that all again. It's Angela James and John Usher from Dialogue, the Dialogues of Living Truth. So we've had a really interesting start to our conversation today, and I think possibly because we are so excited, because today's topic is all about purpose. So, John, we've been having some really interesting conversations about identity over the last 2 episodes of Living Truth and the Living Truth Dialogues as we get serious for a minute here. And yeah, there's a progression, and we know that once we have looked at and start to embrace and connect with the energy of formulating, and what about formulating, such a formal word, uncovering, unveiling, connecting with the energy of identity, the next real question starts: how do I translate that into something? How do I bring that into manifestation within the world? And for me, and I, really interested in hearing your point of view as well. For me, my perspective is really all around purpose. And that really answers the question, the soul's question of why we are all here. And I do believe that each one of us, with the gifts and talents that we have, does have a specific and a unique purpose to be able to build this incredible mosaic of what is possible in the world today. So your thoughts on that? And I'm slurping tea today while we do this. I think we need to actually call this Living Dialogue slurping tea sessions as well, where we can kind of come together and have a cup. Sorry, it didn't give you the advert before.
So, yes, for the purpose, I absolutely agree with you, Angela. I think, in terms of identity and purpose is one of those things which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Is it purpose or identity that comes first? Does your identity create your purpose, or does your purpose create your identity? And I do think, once we start tapping into purpose, that we start clicking into why we're here, what are we doing here, what's the meaning of our life, and all that kind of thing. And I think they are beautiful questions. I love the whole purpose energy thing. For me, it is about, I have a whole program called, Life Alignment, which is about, living on purpose, living with purpose, living on purpose, living deliberately instead of K, Sarah, Sarah. Okay. Even though my surname is Christian, I cannot sing.
I do the case Sarah, because I do the conception of what the purpose is, and then you give it the meat around the bones in order to be able to live, or should I say the flesh around the bones, in order to be able to live the purpose. And that's why I'm giggling, is because I live in the world a lot of the time. Sarah. And that's why John and I are such a good fit together, because he grounds a lot of the stuff that comes through my brain into something that is real. So that's just like a news flash out there. You want to know what your why is, that I can help you with. You want to know how to deliver on your why, that's what John does. So this is the way that we dance. And I'm loving the energy in today's session after the last session where we talked about pseudo identities. It was so serious. I just thought, actually, just linking back to that, one of the things that we picked up on was a piece of information that came through this week from one of Shannon O'Hara's podcasts. I think it's episode number 6. And that was, and I just want to kind of newsflash for this one, because it was something that really made me think about identity this morning. And that is those points of reference that we have around our families that kind of negate for many of us around what our identity actually is, because the general run of the mill is that people want us to be and fit into their model of the world. And that's not always the case at all. And that directly impacts on purpose. So how many of you out there that are watching have had, where you've had a very clear idea of what your purpose on the planet is, only to be told, no, you need to go out and be a doctor, or go out and be an accountant, or go out and do X, Y, and Z, or whatever you're doing. I'm dealing with somebody at the moment who's one of her parents is kind of saying that, working in the healing space is not a real job. And it kind of goes, that feedback goes very counterintuitive to what purpose is all about. And I'm just, that's just one example of so many people who are become round pegs in square holes because they haven't honored and really not only honored, they haven't birthed and they haven't lived that very unique purpose that is special to them and that is needed by the world.
Yep.
I think you've had that experience as well, huh?
Yeah, I've got a mate that's he's a big burly guy. Comes from, a mechanic kind of background, family background. And he's a healer, so the family don't understand it. How does somebody that, is covered in diesel and oil all the time want to suddenly get into healing energies? That's a hop, skip, and a jump from where he is. And he's lived a long time carrying that burden. And in last week, he's just decided to hear and no further. I'm now going to invest in my future, and I'm going to start studying in that direction. So, shock, horror, gasp for the rest of the family. But the liberty and the joy that he's experiencing now is just, that's what we seek most of our lives.
Yeah, and part of what we talk about in terms of living truth, I absolutely subscribe to this, is when we talk about skills and how do you develop skills within this space. They're very different skills to the skills that are in the kind of tangible, like repairing a car or something. Part of these skills are, and it all speaks back to living authentically and living our truth, is that it's that power of purpose that has driven him to make those decisions and make those choices, to make the contribution that only he can make.
Yeah.
Because people he treats through his healing practice are the people that are drawn to him because of the power that he has as a healer. And so it's not about, again, purpose doesn't lead us into, like me, erroneously thinking years back, that purpose leads us into competition with one another, because we may verbalize a similar purpose. But there are, how many billion people on the planet? And there are only so many people that we really are here to touch and to impact upon. And we never know the impact that other people's purpose is going to have on yet more and more and more people. Because when we really tune into and connect with the sacred geometry of all of this, the Fibonacci sequence is unending. And, if I am just one person that's influencing a whole lot more people, we never know how far-reaching our influence could be, positive or negative.
Yeah, that's that throwing the pebble into a lake. You don't know how far those ripples go. It reaches way beyond what we see or perceive. But your walk with purpose has not necessarily been a straight or clear walk in your own mind.
I thought it was, I actually did think it was. So thank you for raising that. Just kind of finish your sentence and then I'll tell you I'll answer your question.
Would you like this to be a one-sided conversation, Charlie?
No, not at all. You're really on form today. Holy cow. I'm going to watch my P's and Q's and stop interrupting you.
It's all good.
I'm actually enjoying the lighter energy after last week's session, which was quite, we didn't laugh nearly as much. But anyway, so you were talking about not being a straight line. In fact, anything, if we have an expectation that anything is a straight line, it's naive. Because life is more like a Gordian knot, that tangled up ball of string that takes us through all sorts of different experiences and learning to get to where we ultimately want to go. And I think the thing that you're alluding to, that you and I spoke about briefly, is that when my original purpose, or when I connected with my original purpose many, many, many years ago, in fact, I think it was 2002, it was a very, for me, pragmatic, grounded vision that I thought it was all going to be about creating this massive, big training company with all this content, which I did for years and years, and I still have years and years and years and years. And what I came to understand significantly in the last couple of weeks is that there's a very big difference between purpose of doing and the purpose of being.
Yeah.
And what happened, because I know you're going to ask me a question. Do you want to ask me a question before I answer? Carry on.
Well, so let's define purpose of being and purpose of doing. What do you mean by purpose of being and
Okay, well, I
purpose
was
of
going
doing?
to kind of get to that. The doing became all about building a business. It became all about writing programs. It became all about trying to sell the programs, pushing a boulder up a hill, kind of the pressures of needing to make a living and bills to pay, and all of those things were all about the doing. And what actually happened for me last year, 18 months, was I had to actually let go of all the doing because it wasn't serving me. In fact, it was taking me down a river where I was, in fact, there wasn't a river anymore. It was a dry, barren river bed. If we want to talk about analogies and things like that. And so I had to shed. I had to shed that identity of who I saw. And this really links very powerfully back to identity, because the identity was formulated around being a corporate trainer, working with corporate
Yeah.
clients, understanding strategy, all of those things, which I can do and I can do in spades.
So that was your experience, your frame of reference for your
Yeah,
purpose?
absolutely. It was all about what we had seen being born in the world, as opposed to truly who we are as a soul. And so what ended up happening last year was I had to shed it all. And it started with me throwing out. I used to move. I mean, this is so funny. And John, we're going to get to part of your story as well, is that I used to move boxes and boxes and boxes of files. I had 5 filing cabinets filled with books and boxes and files. And by the way, the noise that you're hearing in the background is my
I'm so
dog with her
jealous.
nails on one of these floors. It just is driving me crazy. But anyway, she's all part of life as well. So I used to move with these boxes and boxes of files and research that went through back to 2002. And I just got
So
to the point
jealous.
where,
So
you're still
jealous.
jealous. Why are you jealous?
Because all of that content. Angela and I do this compare thing sometimes, and one of the things that gets me is she's got all of these manuals, all these programs, they're ready to roll. You come up with a problem, she's got the solution. She'll whip out the manual and slap you with it. Yeah, got it for you, got the answer. Come on now. Love it. And I'm not there. So jealous.
Don't let John
Maybe
fool you, John. Don't let him fool you. His consciousness is just incredible, and the stuff that comes out of that brain is just amazing. So don't let him fool you. We've had that dialogue and conversation and gotten to the bottom of changing that reality. So yeah, just kind of in that change of reality was that I kind of got to the point of, why am I carrying all this, excuse the language, crap around with me? Move after move after move. Why am I carrying it all? And I literally threw away. I have one small bookcase left with books in it. I have one shelf of a hanging file for what are those things? You know, those drawers with the hanging files in it. That's got a sample of each of the programs that ended up being printed, because there's lots more, but not everyone was printed, in a hanging rack. And so I kind of went through this. I didn't realize that this was going to be part of my story today. I kind of went through this. It just goes where it goes.
surprise.
What can I say?
Yeah.
I did, I looked at this last year and I'm kind of going, what has all the last 20 years been for? All this work, all this dedication, all this commitment, all this investment of time, energy, effort, and money. And now, dudes up there, you're asking me to let it all go? Holy cow. And that's what I had to do, because I had no choice. It wasn't serving me. And that was when we get stuck in the vision and the purpose, or
Yeah.
not the vision, when we get stuck in the purpose of doing,
Yeah.
that's what happens. And I had to get to a point where I willingly had to surrender and give it all up. I still have the tendency to want to jump back into the stuff. Like John says, if you've got a problem, I've actually probably got a solution for you. But what I'm also learning is it's about who am I being? And that being redefined herself into what I now take out into the world as a spiritual psychic, spiritual counselor, is working with the gifts of spirit. That's the part of the purpose is to bring through the gifts of spirit. And it's a very different energy compared to when I'm in the purpose of doing. That doesn't mean to say we lose our purpose of doing, but it's the doing now comes from the purpose of being. Okay, I'll shut up now. It's your turn.
Well, I think you're on track there. So what you're saying is, I'm hearing you say, is in terms of what it is you're doing is now backed up by an identity. You're doing it as an extension of your identity. So instead of running around and chasing a fancy training center with all the content, what you are doing is executing out of the being, executing out of the identity, which by right should draw those people into your life, draw the people that you are going to serve.
And for me, that goes back to my soul code, because when I went and I had a look at what my soul code actually is in terms of the numerology, and if anybody's interested, I can help you with that too, because that's an amazing piece of work that's being brought through. And that links to birth date, birth name. It links a little bit to, I don't do a lot of it, because I'm not an astrologer. I do know my very good friend Michelle Vincent is an absolute winner in terms of astrology. But it really is that code, that soul's code is actually our soul DNA. And John talks a lot about the DNA in terms of a model that he's built, which is absolutely phenomenal, called the helix. We're not going to get into too much of that. We'll drip feed you with that because it's quite complex, but it's incredible. It's incredible in terms of the work that he's brought through. So don't let him kid you when he says he doesn't have the courses. They might just not be written into manuals yet, but he's got the material. He's freaking phenomenal. Oh, news flash for you as well. John also just launched his book. I had to put this in. You knew that I had to put this in. His book on Amazon. And it's, what's the title again? I know it's Visions.
Value of Vision.
The value of vision. Okay, we're not talking about vision this week. When we talk about vision, then John will have a lot more of the floor. But I just wanted to kind of give you the heads up. Look for it on Amazon, The Value of Vision, John Usher, available in paperback and also in on a Kindle version. And it's the reason why I'm sharing it with you is because I'm just so freaking excited to see how he is manifesting some of the incredible material that goes that he's put onto paper in a much more accessible form. I think that's the right word. So, John, kudos to you for getting that book out. I know that it was a big jump for you. It was a massive big jump for you, and also kind of linking back you to your purpose, linking back to your identity, linking back to your soul code. And John and I did some work on his soul code last week. It was mind-boggling for me in terms of how on track he is around what he's bringing out into the world. So we're bouncing a little bit all over the place today, and that's part of the excitement of purpose.
I think so. It's exciting stuff. So just something that came up for me while you were sharing is just when we talk about the purpose of being versus the purpose of doing. And I don't want to get into the vision stuff, but just it went clunk while you were saying this. So if you watch back on the video, you might actually see the eyebrows. I don't have much in the way of eyebrows, but they actually lifted briefly. I was actually presenting a course one day, and a woman said, I said to them, your face communicates a lot. And she says, yeah, you look like a serial killer. I'm like, oh, thank you. Why would that be? Because you don't have eyebrows. I will put that out to the police. Look for people without eyebrows. These constitute serial killers, apparently. Cool bananas.
Love the stereotyping. I love the stereotyping. And what must sit behind that identity for that comment to come out?
Yeah. Same. I don't know who she was exposed to, but they were apparently scary people without eyebrows. Might have been some. Who knows? I don't know. But the purpose of doing for me actually speaks to vision. And that just, while you were saying that, when we were talking about the purpose of being, purpose of doing, purpose of being is the identity, and purpose of doing is going to become a wholesome vision. But I want to come back to, in terms of, you went from chasing the vision in terms of chasing a vision to focusing on identity, focusing on being. What was that transition for you? Why? What kickstarted that transition? Why did you do that? Is
quite
that a tough
interesting to
question?
reflect back. No, it's just I'm just reflecting back on how kind of the unraveling probably started pre-COVID already, because I'd created all this stuff and I kind of got too clever for my own good, in the sense of going into a client and going, "Oh, I can help you with this, this, this." In the meantime, that the client's propensity for the ability or the amount that they could
Yeah.
actually deal with was just that piece instead of my whole
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
So that's kind of started the disconnect for me in terms of working in that corporate space. The other thing that there's a parallel process that goes on here. The one is the external world of what's going on, and the other is the internal world. And the external world is always a reflection of our internal world. Little did I know, and I'm going to go a little bit spiritual on this because this is what happened.
Yes.
When we turn 58, we enter into what is known as our Saturn return. And Saturn is the planet on our astrological charts that teaches us the biggest life lessons. We have our first Saturn return at the age of 28 to 30, and it kind of goes on a little bit longer, probably to 31-ish, around about 30, 31 and a half. And then the second one comes in at 58 to about 60, 61 and a bit. And what Saturn then does for us is it presents us with our major life lesson. And my major life lesson was about being attached to what I'd created. And so with the attachment and the expectation, and the expectation not delivering on what I thought it should be, the riverbed ran dry. And that riverbed being finance and money also ran dry. And so I was literally taken to a point where I had no other choice. And when you ask about the transition period, because I think that's really what you're asking about, that's what I refer to as the messy. We talk about, and I've actually put up a Facebook blog post, a blog post this week on that messy. As a world today, we are living in the messy. COVID has brought about the messy now with the Ukraine, Russia, I don't know what to call it, a saga, because it's not a saga, it's actually quite serious, with what's going on in Eastern Europe. We are living in the messy. Some people who have the kind of leaning towards that, might be saying that we're living the apocalypse or whatever it is that we might be doing. But the messy is all about the transition and the transformation. And that's really where I had to step into my own inner mess. And I use that word lightly, as in that. And I'll tell you why I describe it as the mess. When you look at transformation and you look at nature and you look at the caterpillar and you look at the butterfly, everybody kind of goes, the butterflies are so beautiful and the caterpillar is just this wormy thing and it just goes into this chrysalis and out it pops as the butterfly. Well, the shape shifting that actually takes place, and the real miracle is the transition from the caterpillar into the butterfly. The second part of the miracle is the butterfly's ability to be able to break free of its own cocoon and to be able to fly. And it's in that messy where I had no choice. I know you walked me through a lot of this stuff, listening to me warbling on. But if it hadn't been for you holding space around me and a couple of other people, it was significant for me. I don't even know whether we'd be doing these dialogues and these discussions. And it really was honoring myself in that process of being in the messy, of not giving into the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, the panic, the anxiety around finances, not having money, all of those kinds of things. Part of that messy is honoring the process. And that is where the power of purpose actually comes in, is because if there wasn't this deeply ingrained sense for me of living my purpose, I don't know that I would have gotten through it. I don't know how I would have gotten through it. And that for me is really the part of the transition that we're all needing to make as we move from the old Piscean age into the Aquarian age, into the a different energy, different vibration. So we've got to leave that old Piscean energy, that old 3D energy of ourselves behind. Not behind as in discarded, left behind, not ever to be picked up again, but to be revisited from the space of being. And from that space of being, we now get into the doing. And that's how the purpose for me has shifted. I hope that answers your question. Again, I'm warbling on and kind of hogging the show today.
Tell me about, so if somebody's watching this
No,
now,
this is going to turn into an interview. I'm
No,
really
neither did I.
into and it's relevant. It really is
Yeah.
relevant.
Somebody watching this and they kind of go in through their own messy, or
Yeah.
they're kind of deciding they want to explore their purpose, and you're now saying to them, "Oh, you're going to go through this messy." What can they expect? What is the messy, and what, is this a positive thing? Is this an inevitable thing? Can they avoid it somehow?
I think that any form of transformation is going to involve a level of messy, because the messy is around where the growth goes. We are so quick to hit glass ceilings and then expect things to change without doing the work that we need to get through to actually break through the glass ceiling into that higher level of engaging and higher level of consciousness. I don't believe that there is any way to get through that transformation without embracing some of the messy. And when we use the word lastly messy, I'm just think of the caterpillar as it's undergoing its chemical change within inside the chrysalis. There's no, in my view, and I think your view too, there's no quick 5-minute step to becoming this great I am person that we've spoken about through all of the episodes that we've done so far. Everything involves a transition. You're going through part of your own messy right now, as am I still going through some of my own messy. And that messy is part of that
How did you
transition
know?
from.
With the beard.
You just thrown me right off again.
Sorry.
But I love it anyway.
Going through the
Part of
messy.
that, but it's part of the messy. Part of that messy is really around being in the space of surrender, of opening up. And I think the biggest transition for me was opening up to my heart and my heart center, and allowing the universe, God of my understanding, cosmic consciousness, whatever you want to call it, to really open up from my heart center and to really embrace. I spell being BE-I, capital I-NG, not just the word being. And it's the capital B as well, because that links us back to our I am.
Yeah.
Because how do I live my I am? I live my I am through being, not through doing. But the doing, when it's aligned back to our being, is an expression of that being. So, is there a way to get there without the messy? I don't know. In my experience, no. Somebody else may say absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if it is.
I
But as
don't
an
know.
observer, watching you go through the process, one of the things that I can say to people what they can expect is the fact that there is a lot of recognizing of the pseudo identities. There's a recognizing of identities, whether true to you or not, that will serve you in your purpose or don't serve you in your purpose. And you do talk about the shedding, and a lot of that shedding is about getting rid of the old identities that were weighing you down, embracing new identities, starting to seed and plant identities that will actually grow into where it is that you need to go.
It was quite interesting in what you say, and your observation is absolutely spot on. Because this time last year, in fact, it was probably about 2 weeks prior to this time last year, I had come out of a meditation, and I was just walking across the floor in the cottage that I'm living in. And I just heard this voice going, "Beloved child, rise. It is your time to rise." I'm going, "What? Okay." And then I'm not going what with a funny face. I'm just going, "Okay." And then as Spirit works with us, what then manifested and came out of that was to rise and challenge the narrative. That was our theme for Rise last year. Little did I know at the time that it was going to mean that I needed to rise and challenge my own narrative. Everything that I held, and you talked about that, it was about identity, challenging all the old identities, challenging those that were true, those weren't true, going back to my truth. And that was really the petition from Spirit to me was rise, challenge the narrative, and stand in your truth. And this is where John and I juxtaposition the wording identity and truth. We're talking about pretty much the same thing, just with truth in the beingness, identity in the doingness. And that's how the two come. I like that. Wow, I do like that.
Yeah.
And that's how the two
Kitty
energies start
clunk.
to come together. Hey, did that go clunk? It went clunk for
Yeah,
me too.
kitty clunk. Yeah.
Yep. And
Very
so
nice.
And so this year, quite interestingly, the challenge for Rise this year is to rise above the noise. And you and I have had that conversation as well. Soon to be revisited when we talk about John's magnificent work in Mount Mutter, and how we shift across into rising above the noise, not only the noise around us, but the noise also going on in our own heads, which is part of the function of our pseudo identities. What I'm loving about today's conversation, and I know we need to wrap it up pretty much, is that we're starting to see the pattern for us is also starting to unfold. It's like the molecules in a chemical equation are all starting to join up, and how interlinked each of these aspects are. And so, if you're wanting to explore your purpose, first off, in your beingness, which is the process that I would take you through, and then in your doingness, which is the process John would take you through. John's done the beingness himself. I'm busy in process with him on the doingness. Then stick with us, because we have some amazing learning experiences that we put together for you to be able to step into your truth, to rise above the noise, or to first off challenge your narrative and then rise above the noise and be true to who you are on your soul's path and soul's journey. So, I didn't realize that this was going to end up being John interviewing me or questioning me, but it's really cool. And I think one more thing that I'd like to say before I wrap up is that don't try to do this work alone, because you will actually kind of unravel. You need to know that you're somebody who's holding space around you. And it's one of the things that I am so grateful for in John and my joint process, is that we hold space for each other as we're doing this work ourselves.
So I've got one more question though. If the title is the real power of purpose, if you were to summarize the power of purpose for you, what would you say? What is the power of purpose for you?
Living my truth. And it really is. This is how these dialogues have been born, is about living my truth. It's not just about talking the truth, but it's actually about living the truth. And the power of purpose keeps me, and we're going to talk about this more, because John and I are going to bring you something next week. Or is it next week already? I don't know if we've got the time for between now and next week. And that is how to calibrate, not just recalibrate, but calibrate according to your truth, your identity, and your purpose. And that for me is about the power of purpose allows me to live authentically, and that brings me the gifts of freedom, peace, truth, joy, happiness, all of those gifts of grace that we so aspire to have. Only in the power of purpose, when you live your power of purpose, it's about we become them. It's not about what we want to have. So does that answer your final question?
Yeah, I like the answer.
Cool.
Boom.
Boom. Chicka boom, chicka boom, boom, boom. Okay, anything more today, or just to sign off, John?
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. I think really also just purpose is a daunting thing for most people. I don't think don't let the messiness or the prospect of the messiness put you off, because in terms of the freedom and the beauty that is then experienced afterwards is just it sounds like such a cliche. It's so worth the journey, but it really is worth the journey.
Well, what do we do? Live falsely or live truth?
Yeah.
And that ultimately is the choice.
Yeah. And I think people that we are drawing do want to live in truth, do want to live authentically.
Yeah.
And to say that is to connect with your sense of purpose. Yeah. Love it.
So that's a wrap from John and I today and for this week. We will be posting this up onto Spotify and, excuse me, that was my tea, onto Spotify and to YouTube. And we'd like to invite you to actually join us for a cuppa. Bring your tea. John, bring your tea with us next week.
Next time.
Because, for us, it's about being chilled. It's about being relaxed. It's not about being in this formal, stiff, kind of over commercialized doing this. This is what you see is John and I being, and that's, I think, part of the magic. So lots of love, lots of light, authentically, divinely me and John in the vision, the book again.
Value of Vision.
The Value of Vision. How could I forget? Please see it on Kindle, see it on Amazon. John Usher, The Value of Vision. You won't regret that purchase. Lots of love, lots of light. Blessings to you all.
Thank you for tuning into Living Truth. Our goal is to carry a message of purpose and meaning to those who are seeking to be, do, and have a full, joyous, happy, and abundant life. If you know of any dreamers, truth seekers, visionaries, light workers, and wisdom keepers who would benefit from our content, please feel free to share our material with them. We would appreciate your time in leaving us a 5-star review on this channel, and visit us on www.angelajames.co.za and John Asher on www.mindmattermatters.com.